Hi, Michelle Patient back again from Talking Family History with an addition to the Ancestry Update series. Today is the 16th of February 2022, and I'm going to talk about two of the main updates that have come through about trees and about the search tools. So first up, this month, a new change since I did the recordings only 5 days ago, is that we have some new family tree views available to us. They're on the left-hand side. You'll get a bubble like this blue bubble in the second diagram that will say there's new relationship labels. So press next. Now, if you look closely, you'll see this is the first blue dot or teal coloured dot, depending on your eyesight and your screen. There are 3 greyed out dots. So there's just 4 dialogue boxes to read about what's new. So let's have a look at the next one. So they're going to cover these 2 new icons in the corner. And the second one is, there you go, partners view. So now you can turn partners on and off. So notice next to Mary Jane, Anna, Tucker, and Teresa, you can turn them on and off with those sliding buttons or on-off switches, whatever you'd like to call them, but they're green in this case and grey with a white blob in the middle. Then the third dialog box is talking about the reset view. Now, reset is the anti-clockwise arrow. That's the second button. So you've got the home tree button and then the 2 new buttons. That dot in the middle. So if you clicked on that middle button, now, unfortunately, when I had the screenshots, I was already working on a tree and I had the drop-down tree tool settings up. So you'll see I've got this funny white blob. So I've actually added to the right for you, so you can see that reset button would normally be sitting where the arrow is pointing to and the white highlight is. But it's just about changing the views and collapses within a tree. And the last but not least change is that bottom one that looks kind of like ravioli or maybe a couple of Polaroid images, but it's sort of a sheet button or a pile of papers. I'm not really sure how to best describe it. So I might use ravioli for now and we'll find something more accurate later, but it's the tree viewing options. And so how do these things look when you get to the end? So how are they going to look? Well, you can hide and view details, including any linked with DNA. So if I click on that ravioli button where the word new is in green, if you don't have DNA connected, you're going to get this drop-down menu on the right-hand side of your screen when you're looking in a tree view. And you can turn on and off whether you want to see the relationships and whether you want to see the spouses. If you're like me and you have your DNA attached, you'll get a longer menu on the right-hand side with the DNA additional options that you have now got controls over. Now, because I'm a bit of a junkie about the first time you ever go anywhere, read the whole screen before you click on things, and don't forget to read the help if you can find it. I'm going to just take you through the small eyes that are in this section on the right. So beside the word relationship lines, always view all spouses, show DNA relationships. There's definitely lots of eyes for you to look at. So the first one is explaining what this button or control will do. The second one is talking about what it will look like when you have it on or off. And here's the DNA one where you'll get a drop-down menu if you've got other trees, and it explains who can do what depending on whether they're viewers or collaborators or managers to the tree. Next, we get to the through lines icon and turning that on or off on your tree view. This is all about tree viewing, remember? And then here we go, possible matches. And lastly, at the bottom, connecting to DNA matches. So how does it look like in reality? So here's my a tree with George at the left. It's a pedigree view, and here's his ancestral lines. And you can see for most of them, I've got 2 sets of icons. The blue round blob that some people are calling that bear claw is actually the common ancestor or through line icon. The green round with the tree leaf is the hint icon for him. But what are they talking about when they say over here to press that new button, the ravioli button? Well, here's, if I press the ravioli button, wonder how long that'll stick. You can see in very fine print behind everything, it says George's grandparents, George's grandparents, George's siblings. So suddenly every person in this view has a relationship identifier to George. Now, I hope you notice that George was black. He's got a black ring around him here in the photograph at the bottom in the middle of the screen. And he's considered the key person whose profile we are viewing in tree format. So on the right, here's what that drop-down menu looks like if I press on that ravioli button on the bottom, on the left-hand side of the controls. So I've got things where I can turn the relationship labels off. So when they're off, you can see there's no grade markings to be seen. And in this shot, the spouses are off. If I turn the relationships back on, there they all are again. And if I turn the spouses on, you'll see that the second spouse is turned up to his left. And so I can see a more complete view of the tree. It does change the layout a little bit. So if you've got someone with 8 marriages, you might want to think twice about it. But in most cases, you're going to find it very helpful to now see both or 3 partners to do your work more carefully when you're looking in tree view. So what about some of the other things? Well, this is the through line that I just wanted to show you that I don't have through lines down every line. And you might not have through lines for everybody you've added to your tree, because I've been working on this for a very long time. So I've managed to do back many lines on all my family. But I'm not really sure about Jessie Smith's mother, so I haven't added her. And I had in the past come across a relationship to a Joseph Levitt. And so I have that as a floating branch in my tree, not connected to Jessie, but interesting through lines. There's a lot of people descended from the Levitts. So it's been great for me that this potential mother has a little bit more evidence because of the way I managed to structure things. But don't be perturbed if you don't see a through line connected to every single member of the family. It's just maybe you need to do a bit more work evaluating the through lines. And I will go back now and have a good look at Jessie Smith's mother potential and see whether I feel comfortable to add her to the tree or not. That's why it's green. It's because it's not in my tree, whereas everyone else is blue for boys and red for girls. They've used it as a convention. So you can see that people are there in my tree because they've got a colour against them or a photograph or an image that I've added. But if you find all that a bit too much and too busy, you can turn it off by, again, pressing the ravioli on the bottom left of the home reset area, the new area that you've got. Turn off the icons and all those blue things, and it will become less busy. But what about someone else in the tree? How do you, if you want to move about and maybe your niece or nephew want to know how they're related to someone in the tree that you're talking about, or maybe it's your cousin's children or grandchildren, lots of times you might want to actually know about other people. So how do you move about the tree live without going in and out and in and out and in and out? So let's say I want to know Elsie's relatives. So if I clicked on Elsie, I would get this drop-down menu, which has a spanner or a shifter, depending on what country you come from. In other words, a tool drop-down menu. And you can see the top item there is View Her Family Tree. And if I select View Her Family Tree, Elsie will become the card that is black and therefore the key person from which this tree is resulting. And it's instant that the names and relationships change the minute I went to view her in the tree. So it's pretty amazing to me that the computing power is doing such an amazing job now in terms of relationships of everybody on the tree at the click of a button. So I can see this being used a lot when I'm showing other people, because a lot of times people don't understand relationships well, what a cousin is, a first cousin once removed is, or a second cousin, etc., etc. And now we have that information quick at the push of a button, which you can turn off anytime you press your ravioli button on the left-hand side. The other convenient tool to help minimise the screen real estate that's been used up by all the information we're building against a person is this new look and functionality of smart filtering. It now removes the images that you've already saved. And you're saying, okay, but how does that work? Well, let's just first of all look at the whole screen. There's only 2 dialog boxes in the tour of this new function. And box number 2 is about this active area on the right. So they've also simplified the controls for our guidance. So we're going to come back to that in a second. But how does it work? So here's an example of one of my ancestors. And I've done a lot of research on him. I've attached a large number of records. I've exhausted the hints that have been presented to me as far as I'm concerned. The only hint left are other trees, and I'm not interested in just adding them in. I will go and look at them, but I don't accept them. But I do have an ability to do one last global search, and that's over here in the top right if you haven't used it before. So right now, if I looked on my screen, I'd have trees underlined as the section of the website I'm working in. If I press on search, it will change. And if you just look in the top left-hand corner, you'll see that there's a slight green underline. Hopefully it's clear to you at home of that underline under search. So I've moved out of the tree and I'm now in the search area of the website. If I didn't mean to click on it and I wanted to search within the tree, easy enough to get back. Just click here because that's the tree link back to his profile page. So anytime you need to get out of here because you didn't mean to be there, if that area is at the top, just click on the name that's highlighted and you'll be back in your tree. But what I really want to show you is what's new, and that's just here. So in the past, we used to see all these things taking up real estate, and we'd think, I've saved this before. Great news is now you can click that drop-down arrow and they vanish. So if you want to see them again, click that area again. That 12 results already in your tree is a clickable link. But what about on the right-hand side? Well, on the right-hand side, it's just got this little dot and a drop-down menu. So if I clicked on it, I will see the same box we saw in the notice, but I'm blowing it up so you can read it. It's explaining to us how the smart filtering moves and removes the people in the list. So we're not having to wade through the people we've looked at before or we've ignored before or we've saved before. I encourage you to read the link in the description area of this video where it says, how is this determined? I will make sure that link's in the description so you can go straight to it. But I want you to notice that at the top, where the green button or control button is, next to where it says active recommended, if you don't like this tool, you can turn it off. Personally, I liked it because it removed the things that I'd seen multiple times and I'm not interested in. Sometimes people don't like the fact that we get all these hints. And for many of us, people are far more mobile than we realise of comings and goings. So I actually think it's good to see hints that you can look at and go, no way, it's not that. Because other times you might think maybe they did go for a trip over the other side of the world or across a ditch or an ocean. And you just hadn't thought about that as them being more mobile than maybe you might have expected. I'm certainly working on a case at the moment where the couple ended up marrying in England and married in Sydney, went to the UK, had all their first 3 children there, then moved back. But the guy was born in Kent and the wife was born in New Zealand. So there's a lot of movement in this family history, and it's just all movement in one generation. Some of their children went back to the UK, others stayed but moved about Australia. I found them in 3 different states, and then there's relatives in New Zealand. So people can often be more mobile than you realise. So it is always sensible to look at all the hints and not just ignore them because you think, oh, they never went to that country. So here you go, folks. That's the changes I've noticed on the website in the last 3 days of my work. If you want to know more about Fiona and myself, we work together as Talking Family History. We send out occasional newsletters, which will keep you up to date with all our news, including things like what we're going to get up to at RootsTech. You might like to watch that video as well. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your research. Bye.